over the last, say, 7 years, scientists began looking at the physiological costs of these systems. And what they discovered, and so these are physiological stressors. So I just wanted to give you one example of this. We now know that there are two kinds of sleep. Sleep is said to be the #1 stressor on children today. So our kids don't sleep enough. They sleep somewhere between 1 to 2 hours less a night than a decade ago. Okay. But we now know that there are two kinds of sleep, restorative and non-restorative. So in restorative sleep, you have something called a slow brainwave. And it's when your energy levels get replenished. Now, how many of you, be honest now, how many of you have had 8 hours of sleep and woke up feeling like utter crap? Let's rephrase that. For the ones that are lying, is it possible that there is somebody in this room that slept 8 hours and has never felt crappy the next day? Okay, that's better. So what's going on here? So we all say the same thing to each other. Oh, we say it's because I slept too long. Well, it's not because of that. So what happened was when you had that non-restorative sleep, that 8 hours, but you still felt awful, what happened was you were in a state of very high tension. And humans are very poor at knowing, that's one of our biggest weaknesses. We're really, really bad at knowing when we're tense. Unless you meditate, you're really bad at it. So think about it now. You've gone to sleep. So this has gone to sleep. But this thing never sleeps. So it's kept you in fight or flight the entire night. That's why you have those ridiculous dreams, right? So you have, so you're running or whatever, you're trying to escape something. It had nothing to do, Freud got this completely wrong. It has nothing to do with sex. It has everything to do with tension. And so you're exhausted because while you were asleep, this monitoring system was constantly preparing for danger with fight or flight. So your muscles are tense, everything's engorged, et cetera, et cetera. You're spending an enormous amount of energy. Now, why am I telling you this? Because the big discovery that was made this past summer that was reported in Nature was that video games an hour before bed puts the kid into a state of heightened tension. So what's happened is not only are these children underslept, but they have not had restorative sleep. So they're coming to school the next day in no fit state to learn. Well, anyways, you get the point, right? So the paradox of all this is, what should they do before they go out? So let's say we're talking kids 7 to 12. What should they do before they go to sleep? So they get that nice restorative sleep. What should they do? A lot of you have had kids. Yeah. And that's the irony, because reading does the opposite. So what reading does is it downregulates. So reading is actually one of the most effective ways we have for self-regulating, for rebalancing the system. So what happens with reading is the child will go into that natural step down. Instead of falling asleep because they're exhausted, what happens is if you've seen the arousal scale that we use, the Brasilin scale, they go from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 and then into sleep, nice sleep. So it's a fascinating example where we now know, there's some very interesting studies done in the States showing us that almost every kid now is on the screen right up until lights are out, not reading.